What does that look on your face, Lisa?
Why did you get involved in Valley's Kids?
When?
Why?
Oh, why? Oh, okay, that's an interesting question. All right, in a previous life, I used to be a motor mechanic and I had my own business and I was running a business in mechanics and cars, and that's what I did for a living, okay? And I seen a job advertised by Valley's Kids for a mechanic for the motor project. Now, the motor project at that time was working in a garage that Valley's Kids had in their other site, working with young offenders who were, they'd broken the law, and part of what they call at the time an intervention was to have them to work in the motor project fixing cars. So my job was to come in part-time twice a week with these mostly young boys of average age 13 to 14. We would work on a car that had been donated to us, and I would teach them how to do very simple car maintenance like change plugs, change oil. But one of the things we ended up doing was getting involved in banger racing, where I converted a car into a racer, and then we would go racing, banger racing, down in Marshfield in Newport, and it was an amazing experience.
Do you remember your first impression of Valley's Kids, and how has it changed? If so, how and why?
My first impression of Valley's Kids, once I was coming in from a business background, a self-employed business background, so I had a particular look on how things should be done, if you like. So it was my first experience working for a charity, and one that had a philosophy and culture like Valley's Kids. And to explain that, it was they often considered themselves as like a family. So the staff became part of the family, and that was something I took some getting used to, a family. I was self-employed and, I came in from a particular background with a particular view on things should be done. But actually it was really interesting, the way people worked with each other, interacted with each other, talked to each other. But also for me it was a bit of a culture shock, because I came into an organisation that had certain values in place. They worked in a particular way, they discussed things in a particular way. And I quite liked it. I liked that philosophy they had, and actually I really liked the work they did. But my interview was with Margaret Jarvis and Pauline Richards, and that interview and that initial contact was one that I think set the impression for me, is how they conducted the interview and how they were. And I kind of liked that. So my first impressions of the organisation was a good one, but very different to what I was used to.
What is your favourite memory or story of being involved with Valley's Kids?
My best impression? Oh, Freddie, there are so many, because I did so many things, okay, with so many people. I could talk about many of the activities we did, like the North to South bike ride, which was a really fabulous piece of work, quite time intensive, staff intensive, but the young people who took part in that had, I know, an amazing time, because they talk about it now as young, parents. I talked about some of the residentials I did, and there were many in, the residential places we had at the time. But I've done international residentials as well in the Czech Republic, was one of them. And again, they were amazing experiences. It can go on and on. But in terms of lasting memories, some of the most significant lasting memories are the work that was done with individuals, families that were consistent. Because sometimes a residential was a weekend thing, or a 4-day or a 5-day thing, and they were amazing. I have memories of those, but some of the most endearing memories and significant is the work that I've done with individuals and families, knowing that the work I did using the vehicle of youth work and play work under the umbrella and the philosophy of Valley's Kids helped me and enabled me to do work which for those young people and those families was significant and quite often made a life-changing difference to them, and quite often, quite literally made things an awful lot better, right, for the individual or the family. They are the ones that really stand out, although there have been so many that I've had some great times doing, you know, when I was a younger man. Like. I'm not sure if I could ride north to south now in a couple of days, you know.
I'm sure you could.
I'd give it a go. I'm going to come back to the question you asked me.
Why is Valley's Kids important to you?
Oh, well, I think that my answer to the last one covered quite a lot of that. And I think it's important to me, because I spent 29 years working for Valley's Kids. Yeah, exactly. It's important to me because of the work it does, right? Because it's not about me. There were many before me, and I'd like to think there were many after me. Valley's Kids in itself is a vehicle, right, that allows a lot of great work to be done in the communities, with individuals and with families. It provides opportunities that many young people and many families would not get. It provides help, aid and support for many individuals and families that they would not otherwise find. It offers friendships and networks, and Valley's Kids is a vehicle that if I'm going to come back to the original question of what's changed. That early philosophy and culture was there, that we were an organisation where we helped anyone and everyone in any means we could. And we were allowed to do that because of the way the funding was brought in, but in particularly the way the staff conducted themselves, and the staff believed in what they were doing. They believed in the organisation's philosophy and culture, and they were empowered and enabled to do the work in the way they understood and interpreted how it should be done. All right, and I think every member of staff had an attitude and a philosophy that we are here to help the young people and the families that come through the door. And if they come into contact with us and we could be of service in some way, we were enabled to do that. Now that is why Valley's Kids is important. The change may be that right now some of that is not as possible as it was. When I came in, it was easy to do, freely, not free, but in terms of everyone who came through the door, pretty much it was. It was free at the point of service, a bit like the NHS, okay? But we had to find funding for that, and there was enough funding to go around to do a lot of the work we did, which is why we did some of that amazing work internationally, nationally, locally, okay? That isn't the case at the minute, and I know things are very challenging, which comes back to the point I'm making, is the Valley's Kids is an organisation that every community needs to have. Now, whether it's Valley's Kids or an organisation that's doing similar work, I think every community needs to have access to a place like Valley's Kids or similar, because it is the kind of place that if it's run correctly and staffed efficiently and funded properly, it provides a wealth of aid, help, support, opportunities, learning. You know, it's a place where people come to get together with other people and just share their stories, get support, have a great time, be exposed to opportunities, learn off people with skills, knowledge and experience, okay? So every community should have a Valley's Kids. That's why it's important to me.
How did you help Valley's Kids, and how did Valley's Kids help you?
When I came to Valley's Kids, I was a self-employed motor mechanic running a business with a particular attitude and philosophy about how things should be done or shouldn't be done. I was a little bit rough around the edges in terms of my attitude towards, you know, many things, okay? Now what Valley's Kids did, by working alongside people who were more experienced and more knowledgeable, hello you, by working alongside people who were more knowledgeable, more experienced, exposing me to different opportunities, and gaining an education in an area of work that I had very little to do with, okay, which was youth work, youth and community work and play work, okay. So by working alongside youth workers and play workers who were very experienced, and I was open-minded enough to learn, so I have to take credit for that, the fact that I was open-minded enough to learn something new, and then they sent me off to university, and I became very good at that, okay. Over time, that helped me to do an awful lot of work for Valley's Kids, aligned with the philosophy and culture of Valley's Kids. So by them investing in me, I was able to repay them by ensuring that the work they wanted done was done in the way they wanted it done very well, and it was carried out to the best of my ability to ensure that the quality that Valley's Kids stood by and the values that they had and they performed by, I ensured that when I did my work, I carried it out following the way they wanted it done, how they wanted it done, and the philosophy. And actually there was a legacy to that, because everybody who came through my club under my guidance and tuition came in with the skills and knowledge they had, but left with more skills and knowledge that they came in with. And I know that, okay? And that again was what I offered Valley's Kids. I offered continuity of that understanding, that philosophy and that culture, which was their ethos, which was written on the wall up in the cross street reception.
What made you want to work with Valley's Kids?
Have I answered that? Oh.
You spoke about coming in as self-employed and how it was a very different.
Okay, I'll stay with it then. Right.
What made you want to continue?
Right. So after those early years, okay, I looked at the way Valley's Kids was being run. I looked at what we were doing and the work we were doing, and I liked the work very much. And the more I did, the more I enjoyed it. And I liked the way Valley's Kids worked. I liked the way that we were allowed to work. I liked the simplicity of it, if you like. The management structure was really simple. You know, I could pick up the phone and speak to the CEO and we'd have a conversation. So decisions could be made very quickly. They trusted me to do my work. So I liked that. Because I came from a self-employed background, I was used to making my own decisions, you know, about things, how things should be done. But equally, I would be accountable for my own decisions. Okay, I would be responsible, and I understood that philosophy. So I was very happy to work in that way. I was happy with the learning by working alongside a lot of people, and I had some great fun. I did some amazing things. I had great fun and lots of laughs along the way. Met some amazing young people who became amazing adults, okay? And one day might be amazing old people, right? So yeah, I really enjoyed the work I did for a very, very long time. You don't stay 29 years anywhere unless either the judge has told you got to stay there or you're enjoying it, okay? And I enjoyed it. There was no judge involved in that decision.
Oh, well, you've answered the last question as well. How long have you been involved with Valley's Kids?
29 years. It was a bit longer than 29 years. I didn't quite make 30, but it was 29 very good years.
And I guess you said you started as a motor technical...
I was a mechanic at the time.
And then where was your journey through Valley's Kids as you...
Well, for 2 years I was part-time working on the motor project with young offenders. So I was working with... My funding came from the probation service and the youth offending service, so I was part-time, okay, and I did that for 2 years. But then the business I was involved in with my father retired actually, and I said, okay, I've decided and I wanted to work as a youth worker. And that's what I did. So the motor project stopped and the funding ran out, but they asked me if I wanted to stay on as a youth worker. So I stayed on as a youth worker because by then I was already volunteering in the youth club. So I went from volunteering in the youth club to applying for the full-time job they had available. They employed me, and the rest.
And that was in Pennygrine?
That was in Pennygrine, yeah.
And then when did you transition down to Dinas?
In about 2009 or 10, I just come out of university, I think. I literally just finished university in about 2010. I was still in Pennygrine at that time, and the person that was running Dinas at the time, she was leaving. So I was asked then by the management at the time, if someone is, the manager down in Dinas is leaving, would he be interested in taking that on? So I had to think about it, and I said, because it was a step up, it was managing a centre, which I hadn't done in full, although I had a lot of experience with where I was and working with the manager at the time. I said, yeah, okay, why not? And that was about 2010, 11, and that was until about last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I left in about.
Another question. Do you believe you made a difference here at Valley's Kids?
Here in Dinas or in Valley's Kids as a whole?
Both.
In Valley's Kids as a whole, I think I answered earlier about by doing all that they asked me to do, going above and beyond. It was never more. It was never a job. It was more than a job. We don't put those hours in. We don't put those hours in, those weekends in, those. We don't do all of that because it's a job. We do it because we absolutely believe in what we're doing and we love what we do. There's no youth worker very highly paid, let me tell you now. But the payoff isn't always financial. The payoff is what you see, and that you've had a part to play in that, okay? At Dinas, have I made a difference? I would say yes. For all of the families I've worked with over the years, because of the type of work I was doing. When I came down here, I started taking on areas of work that I didn't think I'd be involved in, because people had all sorts of problems, frankly, and dilemmas, troubles, things that needed sorting out. And they range from, I've got a cockroach infestation to, my dog has got fleas, and serious housing concerns, okay? So it's a real mix of things that were not in my remit, if you like. But when you come down here, you don't say, well, I don't deal with that. Like I said to you, what we do is say, well, what is your problem? Okay, so I haven't got any experience in that, but I will find out. And over time, you become experienced in that. So when people are coming in the door with a problem, I've seen them before and dealt with before, I say, okay, I know what to do there, I know what to phone, I know what to speak to, let's deal with that. So yes, I know I made a difference, because there are people living here now who wouldn't be living here otherwise.
Yeah, I believe you made a difference, especially with my grandfather. If he was still alive, I would say, he would literally say that you made a difference here. You helped everybody here. You are basically family here. In my opinion, you are family. You're part of Dinas. Even if you live here or not, you're part of Dinas. You helped everybody here. You're family here. We consider you as family.
I remember taking your grandfather up Snowdon. I remember looking at his drinks bottle and having a conversation with him. And he was fabulous, okay? He really was. And we had you and his uncle, your uncle?
Yeah, my uncle.
Yeah. It was, I did that a number of times with that group. And when I talk to you about experiences, about meeting people, being with people, they're very much part of those fabulous memories I've had. And yeah, we saw some very frank and open conversations, if you like, as one man to another man about things and life. And I certainly did a number of things with them to help them, simply because it's what we do, but it wasn't just a job. If we could help, we helped. That's what we do. And when somebody came in here to work, they understood that's what we do, and we did it without judgment, without criticism. We did it if we could, because it was the right thing to do. And thank you for what you said.
Thank you so much for coming in, Rog.